Hello, wrestling fans, and welcome to another edition of Talmbout Wrestling, right here on the Black Fitness Network. I'm your host, the untouchable J.R. Atkins, and this is your primary destination for wrestling conversation. Happy Sunday again. For the third week in a row, we are here on a Sunday for you because my Saturdays have been kind of crazy lately, quite frankly. Halfway that and halfway just things happen in life, be life, and a lot of stuff happens. So it's another Sunday. I am bringing the show to you. Of course, we're recording this on a Saturday night, but you're watching it on a Sunday, Saturday night, Sunday afternoon, morning, whatever, right? Same thing. The only difference is, collision. Maybe, if you want to throw that in there. So, first and foremost, before we get to anything, I want to make sure that I thank everybody, as always, for tuning in. Make sure that if you're here, make sure that you like the video, share it with anybody that you can. Subscribe to the Black Fitness Network if you're new here. If this is your first time here, make sure you go and subscribe so that you don't miss any of the content that we release. Normally there's a What's Up Wednesday article. This week I did not do that. I had a lot happening and I just couldn't get my mind right to actually write anything. But it will return. I will return. These Talking About Wrestling episodes usually go up on Saturday at 12, if I can help it, or somewhere in Saturday. But it just kind of depends on, again, how life is lifing at the time. So if not Saturday, almost always will be a Sunday if you don't get the Saturday. So keep that in mind. Again, if you're here, thank you for the grace. And again, make sure that you like, you share, you subscribe. Make sure you leave a comment, a rating, a review. Follow me here on Substack. Follow me on YouTube on Black Phoenix Brand. Follow me on Spotify. You can find me there too. And again, rating, review, comment. Engagement is the key, and I can't stress that enough. Engagement is the key because we want to grow. We are trying to hit 50 subscribers here on Substack by the end of the year, and I need you all to help me do that. Now, if you want to watch it, if you're watching this, so happen to be watching this on YouTube, make sure you do that there as well. But in any event, you're here now, and I thank you for that. Now, before we go any further, got to give the people what they want. And this one, this is a little, I may be asking for trouble with this one, Is that the thing? Okay, I didn't know that was in the camera. I might be asking for trouble with this one, okay? But it'll make sense. So it's time for the shirt of the day. Here we go. You ready? What's that out here? All right. I'm all in the camera. You see. If you can't see. Boom. Should we get this in there? That is right, ladies and gentlemen. That is right. I know that's controversial. That's going to get me in trouble. So I don't have sponsors. Enough said. I don't even have to say. If you know, you know. So today, what we're going to do, and I want to make sure this one's brief because even though it's late, I don't want to go too late into it. I don't want to go too long into it. But normally I would do the WrestleMania watch. And there are things that happened, but I want to keep this kind of quick. If I can keep this between 30 and 45 minutes, that would be great. That's my ideal. So we're going to go for that. And in doing that, all we're going to cover is the results, a bit of a review, if you will, from AEW Revolution. Now, not necessarily going to go too deep into Dynamite either. Dynamite was kind of a mixed show. I've seen a lot of people saying it wasn't a good show. It was fine by me, but I'm unpaid AEW shield, so there's that. But it was a decent show to me. But it wasn't a lot to cover. necessarily, and I think it only really bears mentioning in terms of the things that happened at Revolution. So where it connects, we'll connect it going forward. So let's do that. Um, we're gonna pull this up. So we're gonna get started. Now I will be transparent here. Uh, I managed to miss uh, the. I think I saw the very ending of the first match because it didn't go the way I thought. Because I figured Willow would open, and then they'd do the Boom and Doom versus the infantry, and then we would main event with the Blackjack Battle Royal. So Willow, I should have known, but Boom and Doom opened, and they defeated the infantry. Like I said, I didn't actually see that match. I think I may have tuned in right at the end and saw like the finish, and that might be it. If I saw that much, I don't even think I saw that. I did see all of Willow Nightingale versus Lena Cross. Um, big story of that match was basically Lena working over Willow's shoulder, which of course I was like, yeah, that's definitely going to factor into the tag match later in the night. Willow did get the win, but if you saw my predictions, then you know what I predict was going to happen. So there's that. But Willow did definitely get the win. Good showing by Lena Cross. But it was pretty much like I said, it's on the pre-show, and they're not going to change the TBS championship on the pre-show. I know that much. And um, even in watching that match, I could kind of tell. I don't know if it's just because they had it booked in a way to make it look that way, but Lena definitely looked like she wouldn't be ready to be a TBS champion, but still ready to be a champion. So there's that. Um, then next up, we had the 21-man Blackjack Battle Royal for the national championship, which did exactly what I said it would do. That it would be the match that would bleed over into the main show. And that's exactly what happened. I think as we got down to the last either two, it may have been four, maybe been three. I'm not sure exactly how many people were left when the show actually started, because there's a little lag over time because I had to watch on YouTube rather than on HBO Max, so I had to switch apps. So in that time, I kind of maybe lost some stuff in there. Even if I was watching on HBO Max, though, it would have I would have had to come um, out of the 0 hour and go into the pay per view, which is still time. It's kind of weird that they would just put that together, but whatever. It's neither here nor there. Last two people were Jack Perry and Ricochet, and I wish that I had paid more attention on Collision because I saw it, but I didn't use it to influence my prediction for some reason. I wish I had paid attention to Jack Perry's promo and the fact that he was even in this thing, because I think I just kind of figured it was a foregone conclusion, especially because it was on the pre-show that Ricochet would retain. Like, it's too many people in the field. Who knows? It could be something random. So who knows? But if I had paid attention to Jack Perry, I probably would have picked him. And he's been the person that Ricochet has been feuding with all this time. So it actually made all the sense in the world. I wish I would have looked at it and paid attention. I would have changed that pick. I picked Ricochet. Jack Perry did come away with the win. He is your new national champion. So that's one down that I missed for the night. And again, it basically was a soft open. They did that thing that they do sometimes. The first official match of the main card was FTR and the Bucks. And let me tell you, when this match was made, a lot of people were like, no, and I was one of them. Like, I don't need to see FTR versus the Bucks again. I've seen it a lot, and I don't need to see it again. But man, let me tell you, it's not, the matches are almost never bad. This is probably ranks high. It might be the one of the best matches that they've had in that series of matches that they've had. Because I can think of, I think the one they had versus the Bucks FTR match from, it was a Dynamite when FTR was like the ROH tag team champions. Then they had a match on Dynamite. That was a really good one. I remember for sure. I think this might be right up there with that one. So good on them for that. But of course, FTR came away with the win clean. Actually clean. Great match. FTR gets the dub clean. And they're celebrating. And then the lights go out. And we get the return, of course, of the rated R superstar, Cope, and Christian Cage. Now, again, if you watch the predictions, I threw out the possibility of Cope and Cage being the ones who would dethrone FTR for the tag team championships. Still kind of stand on that. So I kind of figured that they would Collision just started. I heard it start up. I'm gonna turn the volume up here a little bit, but it won't interfere with the show. So I kind of figured that look at that. Kind of figured that they would return. I didn't know if they would return to cost them the title, but I figured they would be back soon. Opening the show up with that for the first official match was huge. They come out, they grab the tag team titles, and they're holding them, and then in come the Bucks behind them. And I said, I called the thing. Because I said, I'm like, you could do like a triple threat, maybe even a TLC-ish thing, and the Bucks would take place of the Hardys. Corbin Christian would close be Corbin Christian, and FTR would kind of be the Dudleys of that situation. And we got the tease. Hey man, I don't know what I'm talking about. Double or Nothing's coming up. You need something to sell that match because it's gonna be in New York. You're gonna need something to sell that event. I mean, why not have the triple threat Bucks, Copeland Christian FTR match, ladder match? Just throwing that out there. Anywho, but also a very big surprise. A lot of surprises on this show. A lot of big moments on this show. So Copeland Christian were the first, basically. Next up, we had Timeless Tony Storm versus Marina Shafir. Everyone was banned from ringside. Tony Storm comes away with the win after a really good match that features some very interesting. Tony Storm is a menace. She won this match basically by biting Marina Shafir's titty. That's what happened. She bit Marina Shafir's titty, and eventually, I think she hit with the Storm Zero. Got the dub. Because I don't think it was a small package or the big package. It might have been. Now I forgot what the. Yeah, it was been by Pimp. Yeah, I'm not sure. I feel like it was Storm Zero though. So Tony wins, and she's leaving, and then this random figure enters the ring from the crowd, and I'm watching, and I was like, "Is that Ronda Rousey?" Say what? Listen. So listen, Linda, listen. So there's been a lot of scuttlebutt. Nobody in the wrestling world likes Ronda. Ronda said a lot about wrestling in general and WWE in particular. She's had some trash takes as a human. Okay. And there are some people who were not allowed on AEW TV because they've said or done some questionable things but they weren't the name that Ronda Rousey is, unfortunately. Not to a not to a mainstream audience, you know. So that is, that is what it is. Ron, I I guess I don't expect anything any different. I am very aware that the wrestling space, unfortunately, is filled with white. It's a white sport, basically. That generally straight white male dominated sport. There's not a whole lot of room for whatever other you are, right? So I guess maybe that has tainted me a bit in my expectation of people. I'm like, I don't expect you to be anything other. If you're not, I'm more shocked than if you're not. So Rhonda being kind of a trash person, kind of feels par for the course. That being said, I'm intrigued at the perspective, the prospect of her in AEW. I know a lot of people in AEW a lot of AEW fans don't want to see it, and that could be I understand. I do understand. But if she's going to be there, I am intrigued at the prospect of what you can do from a story perspective. If she decides to come in, now I do have the fear a little bit that this could be another Punk situation, and they haven't announced that she's all elite or anything like that. I don't know. Maybe they wanted to see what the backlash was going to look like first before they decide to move forward. I don't really know, but um, my fear is it being another CM Punk situation where um, she's kind of there to want to get herself over, and she taints the company again in the same way that, like AEW's on a high right now, in the same way they were on a high when Punk came back. I would hate for that to be damaged again because of Ronda Rousey. So fear there. Um, Going back, I want to tie Dynamite in. So because I was going to die the Tony Storm thing, I want to make sure I go back first. So with FTR and Cope and Christian and the Bucks, there was a promo at the end of Dynamite. Bucks are there. Cope and Christian come out. Cope and Christian announced they do have a tag title match with FTR at Dynasty, which is going to be in Vancouver. So maybe that's where they'll win the titles. Seems like it would be, but I'm not really sure. So that happened on Dynamite. Also on Dynamite, so after Ronda Rousey's there, she calls Tony Storm back to the ring. It's kind of a big holy shit moment because Tony Storm has built herself to be that big of a character, that big of a deal in AEW. So she comes back to the ring. People flood the ring trying to separate them. Marina gets this cheap shot off, knocks Tony out. Her and Marina and Ronda leave together through the crowd. On Dynamite, it was supposed to be a no holds barred match between Tony and Marina, but apparently Tony was not cleared. They show a video that Tony was attacked in her locker room or dressing room or whatever, and basically going to give this whodunit. Um, Marina Shafir denies having anything to do with it, and Mina took Tony's place in that match. Mina defeats Mina defeats Marina in the no holds bar match on Dynamite, and I'm not really sure where we're going here. I'll let it play out. Interesting decision. Back to Revolution. So as Ronda and Marina are leaving. Moxley's music hits. He's making his way out next to defend the Continental Championship against Takeshita. There's that moment that happens every match. Marina gives Moxley the slaps. He doesn't really acknowledge Ronda much, but Ronda kind of acknowledges him, like kind of go out there and get it, kind of thing. And they left, and it was just that. And we hadn't heard anything else from Ronda since, so it was kind of. So we get Moxley and Takeshita. Hell of a match, banger of a match. Mox comes away with the dub after catching Takeshita in the Bulldog choke. Takeshita passes out, basically. Mox retains. Hell of a match. Takeshita looked like a superstar as always. But you're going to have to put something on him soon, man. You're going to have to put something on him soon. It was a big deal for him to be the New Japan World Champion, but you're going to have to put something on him in AEW soon. Not sure what, whether it's the Continental, whether it's the International, but you got to put something on him soon. Absolutely. He deserves it. He absolutely deserves it. Next up, we had the women's tag title match, Divine Dominion, as Megan Bayne and Lena Cross taking on the Babes of Wrath, Harley Cameron, Willow Nightingale, and of course, the story of this match again is Willow's hurt shoulder from the pre-show, which I said was going to happen. And sure enough, it was pretty one-sided actually, and it was fast. It was like 5 minutes. Okay, that's like the shortest match on the card. 5 minutes. Yeah, it's the shortest match on the card. As it should have been. I mean, Willow was hurt. It was pretty much, they had a little bit of fire, but they pretty much just beat her down. And Divine Dominion, or you were new, and I knew they were going to win. If I had any doubt, the fact that they have a name, Divine Dominion, which was not Mega Cross, which I think I heard used on commentary. It wasn't Mega Cross, it was Divine Dominion. When I saw they had a name and they had a graphic for the name, there was artwork in their video pack in their Tron video or whatever. I was like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, yeah, okay. I left something out. I knew I left something out. I was like, there's a lot that happened here, and I feel like I missed something. Okay, so before we get to Divine Dominion, let's go back. So now we had FTR beating the Bucks. Cope and Christian come out. We have Tony Storm defeating Marina Shafir. Ronda Rousey shows up. So John Moxley defeats Takeshita. He's in the ring. They are leaving. The Death Riders come out. Everybody's congratulating them. They're leaving. The video starts. And we get the return of one Will freaking Ospreay. And you're looking at it and you're thinking like, okay, so how's he gonna look? Because he had a neck surgery and people don't always come back the same from that. He immediately busted out like a handspring double Pele kick and a sky twister to the outside of the ring from the top rope. Oh, you just like that, huh? All right, then. Cool. So back to back surprises, just like that. Then of course, like I said, Dynamite, we get Will Ospreay beating Blake Christian, being exactly the Will Ospreay we knew him to be before. He calls out Mox. Mox obliges, but the Death Riders actually were obliged. All of them come out. We get a thing with Ospreay and Pac. They're all kind of brawling. Really just a cluster. So we're definitely moving towards Mox and Ospreay at some point. And then of course Divine Dominion. Nothing happened with them on Dynamite. Yeah. So next up we had Swerve versus Brody King, which was another banger. Swerve, of course, is gonna bang. And having somebody like Brody to work off of really was a good spotlight for both of them. Puts Brody in a place where he hadn't really been just yet as far as on the card. He's been moving up. He's definitely getting a lot more notoriety. This is one of his probably highest profiles solo matches that he's had on a pay per view. Grand Slam, I guess, doesn't count because it wasn't really pay per view. It was like a pay per view level edition of Collision. Because that was probably his biggest match. But with Swerve, it's right there behind it. Hell of a match with them. Y'all want to go big meaty man sweat, slapping man meat, but it wasn't really that. But it was definitely a hell of a match. Swerve ends up taking the win after 3 house calls. And then after the match, of course, he goes to attack Brody, which brings out Kenny, by God, Omega. Surprise after surprise after surprise. The first half of this show was insane, just off of just because of that. So come Dynamite, Kenny Omega. So here's the deal: Swerve beats Brody, that puts him at the front of the line for MJF's title. Spoiler alert. And Kenny Omega's like, hey, I'm back. We still got beef. So how about you put your number one contendership on the line and let's see what's good. Swerve later, and it's all on Dynamite. Swerve later comes out and says, well, hey, you want another match? I already beat you. But you got something I want. So I don't just want, this time I don't want to just strip you of your EVP like I did your friends. No, this time I want your EVP status. So if you want my number one contendership, you got to put your EVP status on the line against me. Very interesting space and very interesting direction they're taking that. So interested to see what happens there with that match. That match is actually happening next week on Dynamite. Again, we're giving it away on Dynamite. And I don't know when we do Kenny Swerve at a pay-per-view. But I ain't mad at it. And I don't know how to call it either. So there's that. Considering that Swerve beat Kenny last time, it's kind of, I think it would be kind of interesting to have Kenny win. But, we'll see. I will probably put the money on Kenny if we're going 50-50 on that to lead to a third match to actually make sense. So maybe. Next up, we had Tekla versus Stat with a 2 out of 3 falls match. Tekla, of course, comes away with the dub. I said, of course, but I kind of figured it out. I think so far, I think I haven't missed anything other than the Battle Royal. I called FTR. I think I called Tony Storm. I think I did. Pretty much called. I think I called Moxley beating Takeshita. I could be wrong whenever. Divine Dominion I called. Swerve I called. I think I called Tekla. Tekla beating Stat. And again, they have really great chemistry together. And Tekla has that thing. And it's weird because she's a very special kind of like heel because she's not really spooky. She's not a chicken shit heel either though. Very interesting in space. I'm not really sure what to really make of her sometimes, but she has the thing. But of course, she wins in the third fall after interference from the Sisters of Sin, and of course, some shenanigans. And shit is probably going to be the story of her reign for a while. It is what it is. It's a different dynamic than we've seen, I think, from any probably champions, maybe since like Britt. I don't think there's been. I mean, I guess you could say Luther with Tony at one point. So we'll see. So here's the thing: the next half of the next few matches, and even that one, Like the second half of this show detailed, really highlighted rather, the thing that everybody says. I'm watching. Okay, I don't know those jobbers. Sorry. Really highlighted the thing that everybody says about AEW pay per view that they're way too long. Because I definitely feel like you could have scrapped the next three matches off of this show, which would have accounted for shit. Let's see. 10, 12, that's 29, 21. Almost an hour, basically. An hour, like 50. Let's see that. 50 minutes and 35 seconds worth of action. And I think that's not including probably entrances and any kind of anything else in between. These next three matches could have shaved off an hour. You could have had this entire thing be an episode of like half of an episode of Collision or Dynamite or anything, and I think it would have been just as fine. Mystico and Jet Speed actually defeated the Don Callis. I definitely missed that one because I had no idea. That's what I definitely missed. Um, Defeated the Don Callis family, Okada, Fletcher, and Mark Davis. I was right about Mark Davis taking the pin, though. I said if anything were to happen, Mark Davis takes the pin. I gave myself an out. But Mystico and Jet Speed actually came away with the Trios Championships. And the gag here is that after the match, they announced that Mystico is now all elite. And it's like, well, now it makes sense. Now I know why you did the thing. Because otherwise, I was like, it doesn't make sense if he's not actually there for real. Under some kind of contract, what would you do there? Of course, he's appeared on AEW TV a lot, but it's, I know they were ready to put a title on him per se. So I mean that happened. Good on them. Definitely was I knew a big thing of that was to have Mystico's theme, basically entrance theme to play. And I've said this. I spent a lot of this show kind of live posting on Threads. A lot of times it's either Threads or it's my Facebook group, the I Heart Wrestling Facebook group. Shout out to y'all on Facebook. I'm gonna have some of those guys on the show eventually, but I usually spend it either commenting in that group, which I kind of did some of that there, but I also was doing some kind of live posting on Threads with some people. Made a few had a few followers there that I also may try to get on the show eventually. So I said there, Mystico has the most unwrestling thing in the history of wrestling. He has there's nothing wrestling about that thing, at least not from an American standpoint. But I love every second of it because it's so different. And it's great to see him now being signed to AEW. Of course, he was Sin Cara, the original Sin Cara in WWE, and that whole thing was a farce, basically. So good to see him back on mainstream TV, basically, or in the big two, if you will. Glad to see him there. I'm pretty sure it's like a dual contract between CMLL and AEW. So good to see him there. And again, they're the trios champions. So we'll see where they go from there. It made sense because it almost feels like this was a way, and maybe there'll be like a story beat to it. Again, spoiler alert. It feels like this was a way to swap the titles, basically to get the trios championship off of Hangman, but also keep them on Jet Speed. So like we had to do that move to get it back with the new partner. So that makes sense. But again, you could have, and I get maybe you needed the all elite moment in California, who knows? But again, you could have done this on a Dynamite or a Collision. Andrade versus defeated Bandito, basically. Again, another match. Andrade is deep in his bag with this character, and the matches are bangers. And I don't know if those two things should be happening because the character is kind of annoying in a way. It it it's it's the worst parts of Penta, but different. Penta's thing that was so annoying was that he constantly was taunting. It was zero, Cero Mero, Cero Mero, in every twist and turn, Cero Mero, Cero Mero. He doesn't do that in WWE like he did. I'm sure they told him not to. But in AEW, he did it all the time. It was like, and it would take away from the match. Andrade has a similar thing with these like chicks and the phone numbers and the groupies and this and that, and doing so much. And it's like this real kind of weird pace that he wrestles at now. But again, once he starts to go, the matches are bangers. Like he kind of does that in the beginning of the match, and kind of once we start getting to the meat of it, the nitty gritty, banger. And I knew it would be. I knew it would absolutely be. Andrade and Bandito would be a banger match. Still could have had it on Dynamite. Still could have had it on Dynamite or a Collision. Great match. Could have had it on Dynamite or Collision. Next up, we had Darby Allin, Orange Cassidy, Roddy Strong taking on the Dogs, David Finlay, Gabe Kidd, Clark Connors. Also, sorry, I didn't mention anything happening with either of these last really 3 matches with Andrade and Bandito, Mystico and Jet Speed versus Don Callis family, and Tekla and Chris Statler. And nothing really happened on Dynamite, even though now Tekla's actually speaking as we speak. So, 6-man Tornado Trios match. This was wild and crazy. Darby is insane. But ultimately, Darby, Orange Cassidy, and Roddy Strong get the win. That leads us to Dynamite, where Darby and Gabe Kidd had a coffin match, which was 6 different kinds of insane. Darby, they met like in the parking lot. Darby put Gabe Kidd in the trunk of a car and crashed the car, and then dragged him to the arena, put him in a straitjacket, and eventually put him in a coffin to win. And then stated his case that now he wants to come for MJF. Somebody else made a case for MJF as well, if I'm not mistaken. But I can't remember exactly who I'm thinking it was. Somebody else made a case that they were coming after. I don't know if it was Kenny or if it was Swerve. But yeah. That led to MJF paying off the Don Callis family to take care of Darby. And I guess Andrade has been tasked with that, even though he didn't seem too happy about it. So, there you go. And then finally, we have MJF versus Hangman Adam Page in the last chance Texas death match. And I think I gave it to Hangman, but MJF pulled that bad boy out, man. And this was a very interesting match because very different in the way. Let me turn it down. Very different in the way. Oh no, we're on the wrong direction. Very different in the ways. Hangman usually in these matches is facing somebody who is like about that Texas deathmatch life, right? So like it was Swerve in one match, it was Mox in the other, and I think the other one he had was against um oh, why can't I think of his name right here? Lance Archer. I want to call him every other name he's had except for that one. Dallas? Lance Hoyt? I mean, yeah. Lance Archer. So this is a very different dynamic because MJF is not about that life, and he had to survive as opposed to there just being a fight. Very violent match, but again, very different psychology than the others, right? Um, because of the MJF character, there were things. There was a glass spot from a window pane. Um, there was a birthday card because it was MJF's birthday. Uh, Again, great psychology. There was a table spot off the stage. Light tubes, barbed wire. There was barbed wire. Um, MJF pulled out a syringe and did the syringe spot that Hangman did to Swerve in their cage match. And that spot is freaking gnarly because I don't know if I care to see a syringe being stabbed through somebody's jaw. Not into, through. I want to watch this with my people who don't watch wrestling because sometimes they get in this thing. And it's like, man, it's all fake, right? It was just scripted. And then there's that a syringe through a jaw. So that happened. And as we're talking callbacks, Hangman eventually brings out a dog collar, calling back to, of course, their shared enemy, if you will. Because, of course, there was Revolution in 2022. Everything in me wants to say 23, but I'm pretty sure it was 22. I know it was 22. Their the dog collar match at Revolution 22 with MJF and CM Punk. And the beauty there, once MJF comes to the realization that the dog collar is on his neck, you see him have this freak out moment of like, not again, not again, not again. And then the match eventually becomes a de facto dog collar match. This, however, comes to bite Hangman in the ass because that's how he lost. I also want to point out, with the exception of the Lance Archer match, every Texas death match has ended with a hanging. It's a very fascinating thing there. There's a lot of hanging imagery happening in AEW too, but the first Texas death with Mox, hanging. The second Texas death with Mox, hanging. The Texas death between Hangman and Swerve, hanging. And this, hanging. Hangman is getting ready to set up for the buckshot. MJF has the ring, hits him with the ring. Hangman loses his footing, and MJF just pretty much hangs him from there with the dog collar. And Hangman's down. Hangman can no longer challenge for the AEW World Heavyweight Championship. And while on one hand, a lot of people are like, I don't know what you do now. Well, how do you, there's so many. Everybody immediately went into armchair booking, like, or doom and gloom on Hangman and his future in the company. And the truth of the matter is, Hangman as champion would have been the safe thing to do. I don't know if there's as much narrative meat there as there is with Hangman, at least for the moment, not being able to challenge for the AEW World Heavyweight Championship again. Now, I see like some of these pundits like Meltzer and others kind of being like, well, either he's not going to be the champion or you're just going to prove that your stipulations don't mean anything. Because if you go back on and then break the stipulations, then your stipulations don't mean anything. And I think that's fucking stupid. It's wrestling, man. It is wrestling. And I know WWE is good for that. And here's the thing, Tony already kind of came out immediately and was like, oh, well, it was kind of a gentleman's agreement. He kind of said, it was the same thing with Cody. Like, it's nothing that I officially sanctioned. It was more of a gentleman's agreement, kind of a handshake kind of thing, that if they lost that match, they would not challenge for the World Heavyweight Championship. That immediately takes out a lot of things, because now you have the narrative aspect of it's not an official thing, it's your word. And what does your word mean to you? Do you keep your word? And at what cost? And what does it do to you to keep your, like, so a lot of narrative, like the easy thing that I've seen people say is like the easiest thing for Cody to have done, and kind of the same thing here with Heyman, is just once you're a heel, just say you change your mind, or screw it, you know what I'm saying? So I mean, and I think that is kind of narratively the way to go. It's just this, when you were a babyface, yes, it made sense for you to keep your word. Now, screw it. So go figure. But that match was ultraviolet. I've seen a lot of discourse about, is it too? The two things I've seen people saying, three. I've seen people saying this is one of the greatest pay-per-views that AEW has ever done. And first half of this show, I could definitely say that's the case. I think as you cut those 3 matches that I said you can cut and put them somewhere else, the show's a little bit stronger. I get that you needed them on the pay-per-view, but those matches could have just not been on the show, unfortunately. But you could have had this pay-per-view without, and I know, like I said, it's Darby, it's Orange Cassidy, you want to get them on the show. Andrade, you want to get them on the show. Okada, Kyle Fletcher, you want to get them on the show, but you could have cut those 3 matches, and this show would have probably been perfect. Perfect length, perfect, it would have been perfect. The second thing a lot of people have said, a couple of people have said, is, oh, it was so violent. MJF and Hangman Page is so violent. It's AEW. Texas Death Match. You know these matches are going to be violent because they're always violent. There's a freaking bed of nails in the last one. What do you expect? In a lights out cage, the first syringe spot was that. There are staple guns galore. Yes. There are light tubes before. Yes. At some point, I'm pretty sure there was a pizza cutter spot on a Dynamite. What are you surprised about at this point? This is an AEW staple. I'm sorry. To me, it was violent, but it wasn't any more violent than anything I've ever seen on an AEW show. Gnarly, and there are things that are always kind of, but like nothing, it's so violent. Yeah. Shut up. That's the second thing I've heard. The third thing I've heard, of course, is the length, and I addressed it. Like I said, I think had you took those 3 matches off, take those 3 matches off. So the pay-per-view started at 7. I think it was over at 11:30. That's a very long time for a pay-per-view, like 4.5 hours. You knock out those 3 matches, that's almost an hour of time that you would have knocked out. And 3.5 hours hits a lot different than 4.5. You get us out there at 10:30, not as bad. And I said the show was 4 hours. That's if you didn't watch the pre-show, which started at 6. Because then you just watch 5.5 hours of wrestling. So 3.5, I think, would have been the sweet spot. Mania's, it's still in WrestleMania. And see, people, how quickly we forget. Mania 35, before they started going to the 2-night, was an 8-hour watch. From pre-show to main event. 8-hour watch. Like, the guys I was watching them with, a couple of them fell asleep during the show. That's how long it was. So listen, AEW is absolutely long, way too long than it needs to be. But it's not the only reason WWE shows aren't that long anymore is because they went to the 2 nights and Vince isn't in charge anymore, and Triple H trying to get you back. Triple H is trying to NXT take over these shows, basically. NXT takeovers should be like 5 matches, 4 or 5, 6 matches, maybe tops. and they would have length, they would have time. The show would be like what 2.5 hours, 2 hours, 2.5 hours, something like that. And Brawling Birds just beat the Sisters of Sin. Like that. But yeah, he's trying to do the takeover thing there. And it's a little different on these pay-per-views because there's so many commercials and ads and dead time and all. So there's that. WWE could never. I am certain Revolution is going to be is going to end up being a much better show than WrestleMania is going to be. There's like one match in particular that I'm looking forward to now on Mania that just got signed. And that's Obafemi versus Brock Lesnar. But that's a story for another day because we are hitting our time. Wait, I'm already over time. Didn't want to go this long, but here we are. So with that being said, I'm going to get out of here. Again, if you're new here, thank you for tuning in this week. Thank you for getting us to where we are right now and to getting us where we're going to go going forward. So if you're new here, again, make sure that you like, you share, you subscribe especially if you're new here. Make sure you like this video, share it with anybody that'll listen. Share it everywhere. Share it, subscribe, comment, leave a rating, review. Follow me here on Substack. Follow me on YouTube on Black Phoenix brand. Follow me on Spotify as well. Again, do all the things because I need you. Do all the things. It's free. It's free. It's not even going to cost you a dime. I am in no shape, form, or fashion in a point in time where I can charge you money for anything. Now, the merch is coming because I already have it waiting. The merch is coming. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But for now, do all the things like, share, subscribe, comment, rate, review, follow, all the things. And when you do that, then I can continue to say, until next time, we are out.